Welcome to the Florence Foodies podcast, a place for the community where we come together, share the stories, voices, and experiences that make Florence feel like home.
Mr. Alan Cooke from Rebel Pie. I'm excited to have you up here and talk about a little bit of pizza. I wore my pizza shirt.
All right. Wrong pizza, but it's pizza. That's
no,
good.
and I mean, I've probably been eating too much pizza because I pretty much don't fit in it. I put it on, I was like, do I even want to wear this? But
it's all good.
It is what it is. But yeah, I have been enjoying some pizza, and actually just a few days ago had the pie of the month.
Sweet.
The cheeseburger pie. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. So getting ahead of myself, let's back up a little bit. Alan Cooke, the owner of Rebel Pie here in Florence on Second Loop Road. Why don't you take a minute and just talk about, introduce yourself, where you're from, and your relationship to the city of Florence.
All right. Thank you. It's good to be here. I guess my background, I'm from Myrtle Beach originally. I moved to Florence many years ago, but that's where I grew up, went to high school, graduated, went off to college for a year, came back, and actually finished up at Coastal, some family conditions and everything. So I came back, finished up there, then moved here probably late 80s, early 90s. Maybe I came with a company that did computers and POS systems, kind of getting into that. And that's kind of how I got into the food scene, was through that. I'd written some software to help a bakery, and they asked me to go to a bakery convention and sold it to some other bakeries and worked with them and became friends with that owner at the time. And we talked a lot, and he was having some employee problems at the time, like most of us do, and was talking about needing a manager. And I'd always wanted to own my own business. It didn't really matter what it was. I was young and stupid, so I thought being self-employed was cool and glamorous and everything else. But anyway, I just threw out one day. I said, "Why don't you just hire me as your manager and train me, and then when you retire in a few years, sell it to me." And he kind of stopped and he looked at me and said, "Would you really be interested in that?" And I said, "Well, if the offer's right, So anyway, we went round and round, and it wasn't long that I was working for him, basically like an apprenticeship. He was a second generation certified master baker. His father had been a regional manager for the largest bakery chain in the country at the time, and that kind of things went south with that, with sugar prices and everything back in the 70s. And he and his dad opened up 3 or 4 bakeries across a couple towns, and then when his dad died, he kind of kept the one in Florence and kept it going, and was a staple and a landmark, basically. So I worked at what was supposed to be 4 years, turned into 6, and then I finally took it over and I bought him out and ran that for a long time, then went through some personal changes and ended up going in the pizza direction from there. So it's pretty much my relation to the food scene in Florence came with computers and ended up with food. So
that's an interesting transition.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to get into some pizza talk here in a minute, but I want to first pick your brain on something. So you've got a lot of background in the baking game. You know your way around flour a little bit and dough. Bit. And I'm curious. So we've got the Florence Foodies Facebook group, and we have a lot of discussion in there. And then obviously for me personally, doing the YouTube videos over the last year, a lot of the comments that come up, and then even just talking with people in the community, and particularly some specific friends of mine, there's a lot of conversation that goes on about specifically like having a deli, in this area, but really not just Florence, but in this part of the country in general. You always hear people say that the reason that we don't have the kind of delis that you find up north is because of the bread. And then people will say, well, in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, it's in the water, which I know there's a lot of chemistry. Cooking is chemistry. So, and obviously baking, there's a lot of chemistry to it. So there could be something to that. But I feel like, there's got to be a way to replicate. But specifically here in Florence, why do you think it is? And maybe you know the specific answer to this question. This is what you're the guy. This is why I'm asking you. Why is it that we don't find that same quality of bread that you see in some of those places up above Maryland?
I think the majority reason is just the trend, the history years ago. I mean, Merita had a bread factory here, so that's what people grew up on was Merita bread, the soft, stick to the roof of your mouth. And there just wasn't enough ethnic diversity here. I think people haven't moved here that grew up on the crusty rolls, the hard bread, the European style bake. I mean, even in the pizza industry, I mean, like there's two givens in bread and dough, and you say to it, time is flavor and color is flavor. I mean, most of what you see in the grocery stores and everything to me is underbaked and underproofed. And, it's just there's not everything is sped up. It's a money game. Now, I think that's changing some, and I think there are more people that appreciate that style of bread now, but then you run into the dilemma of if you start making it, how do you get the word out? How do you get enough people into that one spot and appreciate it? Because bread is, it's a volume game, so you got to have that diversity of people that want that style of bread, and then enough of them to make it worth your while to make it. I mean, it's not very profitable to make 10 loaves of bread. I mean, because you can't sell them for $20 or $30 a loaf. And although there's not a lot of actual hands-on time, I don't have to be sitting there for 6 hours with my hands in the dough, but you've got to be conscious of it for 6 hours, or 12 or 24, depending on, whatever length of time you're doing your rising, your proofing, as we call it. So it's not a ton of hands-on until you start making them, but it's just a volume game to make it worth your while. I mean, if you're not going to make, especially if that's all you're doing, if you're going to open a specialty bread store or do a lot of them to make, 200 loaves of bread selling for $3 or $4 a loaf, that's a lot of time to mold up and form 200 loaves of bread. So you got to make sure you sell them all. So I think it's just an economics thing right now is who is willing to do it, put the time in and sacrifice to get it going. And plus how many people can do that? Most people, it's an artisan game. You got to have, and it's not just because, and you find that in the retail bakery business or the pizza business. I mean, we have tons of customers that are regulars. I mean, once, twice, 2, 3 times a month that have pizza ovens at home, because everybody's got one now, the Uni or the whatever. You could buy them at Academy Sports. You can buy them online. It's a great conversation piece, and it's fun to do if you've got some people over. But it's not if you decide you want pizza at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, if you want a good pizza, you're not eating pizza at 5 o'clock if you decide at 3 o'clock that's what you want. And it's a lot of work and cleanup to just cook 1 or 2 pizzas. And I think that's the same way with the bread. Just because somebody makes a loaf of bread at home, that doesn't translate into making hundreds of loaves of bread efficiently.
Yeah.
Same way with a retail bakery or a restaurant. I mean, how many people open a restaurant because they love to cook and they cook Sunday dinner and all their family says, you should open a restaurant. There's a big difference between having 12 people that are going to be there at 6 o'clock to eat X amount of food that you're making and running a restaurant that's open 8, 10, 12, 16 hours a day, never knowing what your rush is going to be, how many are going to come in on a certain day, how much you need to prepare. So it's just a whole nother ball game translating things into volume. And that's what a lot of people, I think, get caught up with. So to answer your question, I guess succinctly, I think it's just historically there wasn't enough ethnic diversity of people that want that kind of bread. And now that that's expanding, is finding somebody that can provide it and is willing to put it out there and have to throw a bunch of it, because you can't save it 2 or 3 days. I mean, if you're making it truly artisan, even some of your higher end grocery stores that are doing artisan breads, I mean, they're par baked, they're reheating it or baking it from frozen, and it's still got all the additives and conditioners to make it easier on grocery store staff to not mess it up. That's why every loaf looks exactly the same. It's all made by machines.
I'm glad that you said that, because I didn't know what you were going to say. And this whole business of, well, it's in the water and therefore it can't be done, I've never bought that. Now, I don't disagree that there may be some truth, because, I mean, even Chef Alex was on a few weeks ago, And he was just talking about even in Italy, when you go from place to place, there's a little variation because of, crops, fruits, vegetables, the soil, and that kind of thing. So I understand that taste can be a little bit different regionally. I'm fine with that. But this idea that, well, you're in the South, so nobody can even make a bread that's close because you don't have the same water that's in New York. I never bought that.
There might be a minute amount of truth to that, but not enough to where somebody's going to be, I can't eat this
That's
bread.
what I'm saying.
It's maybe, especially a long fermented bread, because your bacteria and your acids and everything are more than taking over what you're getting out of the water. And the biggest issue I hear with the water is mainly New York bagels. They say that makes a difference because they boil those too and everything. So I might could see a little bit of that, but I don't know. Were you here when Atlanta Bread Company opened over there near?
Over off of it's now the Food Line. It was Piggly Wiggly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was in the bakery business at the time, and we were like, okay, what's this going to be? And all we got was complaints about people would come in and be like, man, we ate over there and their rolls were so hard. They were stale. They were, they didn't understand European style bakes. Over there, everything's baked dark. And you go to Germany and you see loaves of bread sold by the pound. There's huge bowls of bread with a little sticker in it telling you what it is. You move the sticker, you whack off a hunk of bread and they weigh it. And it's a meal in itself. It's not soft, stick to the roof of your mouth. Mm-hmm. It's firm. It's got a chew. It's like, ripping the crust. Yeah. So it's just, again, people have to appreciate it and want it to sell it. If it's not what they have in their mind of what it's going to be. And a lot of that, you can't get it like it is there because I think more of that is a romanticized vision of your past. It's like people growing up, everybody wants, the pizza from school, that little square. If you really had that again today, you'd probably be like,
trash.
Oh, this is the nastiest thing I've ever eaten. Because I don't remember anybody in my school days raving about pizza day. No. But now everybody wishes they could go back to it.
I'm not in that crowd. I see that on the internet too, and I'm like, are y'all kidding? That pizza was horrible.
Every lunch at school was nasty.
It was, yeah. At West Florence, we had by that point we had Chick-fil-A and you had Little Caesars, which honestly, you're a pizza guy. Sorry, Little Caesars, but I'd rather not at this point in time, at this point in my life. But back then, it was awesome. Yeah, probably because we'd been eating the school lunch all the way through elementary and middle school.
And hey, if you got 3 or 4 kids, and you're trying to shove something down their throat, for cheap,
$5 a pizza.
I'm not condoning what you might be making them swallow, but
yeah. Tastes like the box.
Yeah. So, it's the same way with and you see it because you run the site, but everybody's what we need in Florence is.
Yeah.
And it's always something. You went on vacation and you ate somewhere else and you come back and we don't have it. So you have this romanticized version of how great it was when you were in another city, but you're on vacation. You're not worried about what you're spending. You're happy. You're in a good mood. Everybody's having fun. So, and you see it. Because, to me, it's proven out by everything we do get is packed for 3 weeks, and then it just levels off, and everybody wants something else new. There's just not a lot of long-term, heavy-duty support for, local style restaurants. There are a few, but nothing like. It's like when Cookout opened, and they had police cars out there directing traffic for weeks. Because it was so crowded over $2 hamburgers. I was just like, there's no hamburger on the planet good enough for me to wait in line where police have to direct the traffic to get a $2 hamburger. But that's just me, and I'm probably different.
Well, I'm definitely on the bandwagon I've been championing that cause myself. Is I do think that, right now the best deli places for a sandwich is really Jersey Mike's is my favorite. Mm-hmm. And they're a chain, but I think they're a really good chain. But, we don't have, if you go up to the Northeast and you go to some of those delis, we don't have anything like it. And the bread, the hard rolls or just having that crust, you need that to hold some of those meatier, particularly hot sandwiches. So like a cheesesteak, chicken parm, something like that. The structure on that sandwich actually holds that together, so it's actually functional too.
Right.
But it doesn't get all soggy on you. But anyways, yes. But I'm encouraged. So we've heard that somebody needs to just step up and do it. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to step up and do it. I think it'll do well. And look, a lot of restaurants, some things do phase out. There's a lot of crazes, maybe or maybe not, that might happen or be happening with like Wingstop, for example. Mm-hmm. But we've had a lot of restaurants that came up that have done well.
Yeah.
Rebel Pie would be one of them. I think that, a place like Town Hall, Buddy's Burgers has, had a big pop, but they've done really well. I'm obviously, people that watch this content know I'm a fan of theirs.
Oh, yeah. I love them too.
And one more thing, I wanted to say this while you're talking about the pastries. So I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but going back to that, I've heard people make that comment with Palmetto Bake Shop. If I'm correct, and I'm not an expert on this, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but the style of pastry that they're doing over there is a kind of a French style pastry, is it not?
Right.
And I've heard people make that exact comment that you said about Atlanta Bread Company and say the pastries are burnt. I was just like, no, they're not. That's how they're supposed to be made. Mm-hmm. And I was telling my wife Friday night, we went somewhere, and I was making this comment. I said, one thing that happens is people go into a place with an expectation of something else they're familiar with, and they don't realize, no, this is designed to be different. This is actually a different type of item, and you have to understand that, and that it changes how you assess it. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to get ahead of myself, but that's actually a segue to your restaurant, because you make a specific style of pizza. Right. So if you go in there, because many moons ago, I made this mistake. I didn't know. Right. And so I actually got a pizza education from you. You didn't even know you did it. But I did, though, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he schooled me. This is some years ago, but he educated me. And once you understand, it changes that perspective. And now you're kind of like, oh, okay, I got it. So I want to talk about Neapolitan-style pizza here in a minute. But before we get there, I really just want to talk about the restaurant, because Rebel Pie is a local favorite. And rightfully so. So, like I said, I came last Wednesday. It was last Wednesday I went, and I got the cheeseburger pie. And I may or may not be ashamed. I'm not even sure if I am or not, honestly, to admit that I ate the whole thing in one sitting.
I've done it many times.
It was excellent, though. When I saw it on Facebook, I commented, I said, I'm going to have to come pick one of those up. I finally got that opportunity to do it. But it really had that. I mean, it was like, it had all the elements and taste of a smash burger, but on a pizza, so it was fantastic. And you mentioned, a lot of people have these pizza ovens, but what everybody doesn't have is your oven, though. So they don't have that.
Right.
So anyways, that was really good. And you were telling me a little bit about this a minute ago, and I kind of stopped you. I said, well, let's just save it and talk about it on the podcast while we're recording. But so I know that you got MSN does a ranking, and Rebel Pie got the best pizza in the state of South Carolina in their ranking in 2016. Now, you're telling me that in 2015, there was another recognition that you got.
Yeah, there was two. It was 2015 and 2016, I'm pretty sure. But one year there was Zagat's.com did the exact same list. They had 50 states, 50 pies. And then the next year was MSN.com. And somebody actually sent me the link to that. I didn't even know it. So They didn't tell me anything. It must have just been, had sent representatives around to eat, which was unexpected because Florence doesn't really get a lot of love. I mean, we've gotten more with the Florence Food and Wine Festival the last few years. They've been able to pull in some pretty good writers, like from Garden and Gun and Southern Living and stuff. So a little bit more on the map. But back then, all the food writers and those type sites would go to Greenville and Charleston and all that. And so we were kind of shocked to get that. But in fact, when it listed us for South Carolina, it even said usually when you think of pizza and food, you think of Charleston and places like EVO and Charleston and everything. But you need to come inland, so we were kind of excited about that.
Yeah, it said that in the article. I was reading it.
And it was kind of crazy. We actually we posted it out there, and we got a lot of response from it. And then actually one of the TV stations picked up on the chatter about it. And I actually drove down to the beach and did a little interview with the local TV station about that. And then for 2 months, we were slammed.
Yeah.
It was like, but we were able to handle it, and we had a little spurt of growth through that. Got the word out, a little recognition. It was an exciting time. So
it's a good problem to have.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of ties into the other thing that came to my mind, just thinking about talking about that, was what's been the response from the community? So, just over the last year since Rebel Pie came to be, we rode by, it was actually that same night we were having that conversation. We were riding down Second Loop Friday night. And I mean, it was early too. It was only, that was Friday night. It was not late into the dinner rush. I think it was around 5:30 or something like that, 5:45. But there was a pretty large crowd outside.
Yeah, our parking lots now, I will give one caveat. A lot of people tell me, I'll see out there, we were going to come and your parking lot was full, especially early, like you were saying, 5:30. There's 3 salons in our shopping center. And everybody Friday after work is getting their nails and hair done for the weekend. So not all those cars are in Rebel Pie. So, if you're in the mood for it and you want to at least pop your head in the door and see. Now by 6:30 or 7, here lately we've kind of had to take the phone off the hook on Friday nights most of the time for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, just because we're just so busy. I can't give an accurate time, and we close at 9. So when we have a waiting line of people, wanting to be sat, and I don't want to make them wait an hour and a half to get a pizza by having to fill in all the. So shamelessly, I guess we do give priority to the dine-ins because servers got to make a living too.
Yeah,
and it's a lot easier to produce and organize the orders coming in from the dining room than when people are constantly being sat and waitresses are putting in orders and then the phone's ringing off the hook. And I got 20 tickets coming out of the printer trying to tell them how long. We're not we don't have $1 million system like the chain pizza joints that automatically calculate by the volume, how long it should take. So anyway.
No, it's one thing that I kind of labor to educate on here on this platform, because I'm biased because of a decade of experience in the service industry, mostly front of the house, a little bit back of the house. And like my buddy that was on the last episode, well, by the time this one comes, I guess it'll be a few episodes ago, but LaTwan, business manager over at 5 Star Chevrolet now. But we waited tables together for a while, in another time period. And this is the type of stuff people don't know. So people get so outrageous and are completely oblivious to what's going on behind the curtain. It's not practical. Like people get upset about things that aren't possible. And so for so many years, I'm not in the restaurant industry now. I don't own a restaurant. So I can say things that others may not be able to say, and that I couldn't say then. But, we would have people come in, like Percy and Willie's, for example. There was a period of time when Percy's moved over to the new building. Mm-hmm. So the one that it was most recently in. And there was a season where on Friday and Saturday night, it was insane. I mean, it got crazy. And for us servers, or at that time period, I was bartending mostly. We were doing great on those evenings.
Oh yeah.
But it was nuts. So like that front foyer area, when you come in the big glass double doors, and then the host stand would be right there. When you were running food, you couldn't get through there. I mean, people were so packed, you had to go around. And if we called it flow looping, but if you were going through the dining room just pre-busing and stuff like that, you'd just have to go all the way around. Right. You couldn't even get through. It wasn't even worth attempting. Then, and they're not open anymore, so hopefully I don't get a bad email or message for saying this, but the range hood kept going out. We had the wood grill, Hal had the wood grill there. And so it's like smoke's filling the place. So the door's open so the smoke can get out. It was a crazy time. It's serving is its own world. And so I've touched on that. I want to continually bring people that work in the restaurant industry, servers, line cooks, whatever, dishwasher on here and just talk more about it, because I think it's something the public should be educated on.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm a very small volume restaurant. I mean, relatively speaking, we're small mom and pop. We got a handful of employees, and you look at the bigger restaurants, and especially in the bigger cities, people, especially on the busy nights, if you've never worked in hospitality,
you don't know.
You can't fathom it. You just don't understand. And when people get, they come in on a Friday night and they've had a long week at work. Well, all those people waiting on you have had long weeks too, and they're having to eat piecemeal here and there because during dinner time and during lunchtime, they're serving you dinner and lunch. And they're trying to make your day special.
Yeah.
And so I have a real respect when I go out, and I try to be considerate and understanding. There's limits to everything. I mean, especially, change everything where they have systems. There should be some semblance of organization, but I understand on busy times, things are just not the same. I mean, it's exponentially crazy. For instance, if you call it the minute we open on a Tuesday night, you say, "Can I get a pepperoni pizza?" Sure. How long? 5 minutes. I can make it and bake it in 5 minutes if you want. Friday night at 7:00.
Right.
It might be an hour and 15 minutes just because there's so many orders ahead of you.
You would think that would be, and that's what I said. I guess I'm just trying to a lot of times go to bat for our local restaurant owners like yourself from having that inside perspective. But I gave that illustration of what Friday and Saturdays would be like a lot of times at Percy's in particular. But people would come in and you think that they would notice that. They'd say, well, there was 712 people at the front door while I was trying to get in here. I see everybody scrambling around, and you can tell when a server is working, and you should be if you're watching them. Maybe that just comes from doing it, but people are moving around, and you would think, but people come in and they're like hostile. I mean, they're like they want it and want it now, and it's just like it doesn't. And then anyways, I could go off on a rant because then the kitchen starts going down and it can spiral out of control.
That's right.
But
it
just
can get
be
out
patient.
of control real fast.
Be patient with your local restaurant staff,
That's right.
ladies and gentlemen.
And one mistake too, or one person, that you might have 5 people in a row that want their pizza cooked dark. I mean, we literally have customers that say, burn it, like make it black. And then we have customers that say, we want it with hardly any spots on it at all. And so we try to, a true Neapolitan bake should have some leopard spotting on there, some dark color to it, not burnt where it's rancid tasting, but dark. So, but we try to find that medium, but you can have 5 in a row want it burnt. And then all of a sudden one person gets what we would consider a perfectly cooked pizza, sends it back saying it's overcooked. Can we make another one and make it lighter? And on a Friday, that throws a real, that throws a wrench in the production. You're in a ticket that's got 7 pizzas on it, and all of a sudden somebody wants one remade and the other 2 pizzas at their table. So, and again, people, if you've never worked in hospitality, just can't understand that kind of situation going on a busy night, So we tried, and I have to play the matchmaker in the middle, trying to calm the servers down and appease the customers and everything. And I tell them all, you never know what kind of day somebody's had. The servers could have had a bad day, but I have to tell them you can't bring it to work, but you can't tell a customer not to bring their bad day,
absolutely. That's the
to the restaurant. Yeah. So it's a juggling game there to try to keep everybody happy.
Well, that's part of what we exist for is to try to give a peek behind the curtain. And I'm at liberty to do so because I don't have to go. I don't have to go serve tables at night, and
nobody's going to boycott your restaurant
stiffed or something like that. So that's again another good segue that you mentioned the leopard spots. And so for you, what is special about Neapolitan style pizza? And have you ever been over to Naples?
I have not. That's on my bucket list. I want to go to Naples, to the Amalfi Coast, and then anywhere else I can in Italy. We're still working on that bucket list item, but hopefully to get over there. But I've done tons of research, and like I say, background was in baking, and I was never a big sweets guy. I always was fiddling with the bread. I liked making the bread. We would do the braided challah bread on Fridays for Jewish holidays and stuff, and we'd sell a few, but we made. I don't think the baker even makes the Italian and French loaves and stuff we used to make anymore. And it was just a handful, while we were doing regular bread. Now, the holidays, like the soft rolls, like people are used to around here, Marita bread, the Parker House rolls, we'd sell hundreds of dozens on Thanksgiving Eve and Christmas Eve and stuff. So it was just a matter of, getting it out there and people knowing about it. But I just don't think there's ever been a big market for that bread. The only thing I can account for that is there's not enough people here that know it and also want it. And it's just hard to educate people into wanting it if they never had it, didn't grow up on it.
So, but the the pizza though. So you got. So tell me. Yeah, sorry,
I missed the whole question
obviously,
there.
I like to talk about bread too.
Yeah. Well, the Neapolitan style, I guess I was born in the wrong century. I like old fashioned things and done the old fashioned way and handcrafted. I mean, artisan baking. I like woodworking. I like using hand tools, hand planes and chisels and stuff like that, turning things on the lathe. So I've just always been kind of a traditionalist at heart. So when I got into the pizza, I wanted to do what I considered authentic pizza, the first pizza, just like came from Naples. That's why we use the Italian flour, the 00 flour, and the fresh whole milk mozzarella, and just simple sauce. We make everything in house. We don't cook it down and reduce it, and real tomato. I mean, it's just fresh ingredients, light herbs, and then our toppings are just as fresh as we can get them, whatever it can be, and then cooked in the wood-fired oven. I mean, that's the big thing for Neapolitan style is the quick hot bake. So my dough, there's no additives or preservatives or anything. And people try to buy my dough or ask me, will I sell it? And I tell them no most of the time because not only I just can't make enough to sell to everybody and use myself because I make my own dough, but also you're not going to get the same result in a 400-degree kitchen oven as you do on a 750-degree stone in the wood pizza oven. You're not going to get the puffy crust and the leopard spotting and the bubbles and all that. And that's what I like about it. Like, especially my wife, her favorite thing is if there's a pizza with a big old bubble, that's what she wants. Give me the bubble. And some people can't stand the bubbles. They don't, I don't like that part.
I like the bubble.
It amazes me. And we have a lot of them. How many people are like regulars at Rebel Pie and don't eat the crust?
That's crazy.
They'll eat it all the way up to the edge, and they'll leave all 8 pieces of crust on the pan. And I'm like, man, I eat the toppings so I can get to that last part and eat that chewy crust.
Yeah.
So it's, and that's really what Neapolitan style is about crust first, simple ingredients second, and then the hot bake third. So.
Well, so the first time I told you I went, because I wasn't educated. I was pizza ignorant at the time. I've learned a little bit since then. We'll talk about that next. But the one thing that I did say, I said that we were talking about it, and I said, I'll tell you this, that the quality on the ingredients was evident. Everything. I mean, from the dough to the sauce, the cheese, all of that. And, I self-proclaimed foodie. I don't claim to be some snob or something ridiculous like that. But, I have eaten enough, and as I've aged, to kind of be able to tell the difference in a Burger King patty and, something, a town hall patty. Like I can tell the difference. Like So it's the same thing, and I knew that that's quality. You eat a piece of Little Caesars pizza, again, not to rag on Little Caesars. I don't want a lawsuit or anything, and then you eat a piece of Rebel Pie pizza, and you should be able to tell the difference. Mm-hmm. It's pretty pronounced difference. Right. So correct me if I'm wrong. I want to further my education. Maybe I'll end up with a PhD in pizza by the time this is over. But so you've got because a lot of people probably don't know like me. So this could be beneficial. I'm all about educating when it comes to the food. So hopefully this is, beneficial. But you've got Neapolitan style pizza, and then you've got New York style pizza. You have a deep dish, which is Chicago style pizza. Then you have like the Detroit style pizza. What are kind of the differences in those? And then am I missing any popular conventional type of pizza?
There's more. I really don't follow the other styles a whole lot because I just prefer the Neapolitan style. But like I said, Chicago style obviously is a big favorite in that area. But to me, that's something, if you go to Chicago, you try it to say you've had it. But to me, that's more like a casserole. I don't even look at that necessarily.
I'm not really a fan either.
Other than it's round. I mean, I would, if I want something that thick and that, I'll eat lasagna.
Right.
So, and Alex's lasagna is
solid.
Wonderful. Yes. New York is probably the closest to, like, some of our best customers are people that have come from New York and New Jersey and say we're the closest, thing they found. But it's not New York style. And I think New York style doesn't have as puffy a chewy a crust. I think the distinguishing factor is it's more, it's a little more sturdy than ours. So you can fold a slice up, fold it in half a little bit. You still want the pepperoni grease running down your arm.
Yeah,
we still give you that. But I think it's just a little more firmer and kind of crispier on the bottom. But most New York style pizza is a shredded mozzarella, and you can tell by the look of the pizza. If you just get a plain cheese pizza, it's you can tell by the way it melts. It's a shredded mozzarella, and I'll eat that kind of pizza. I like that too. Whereas Neapolitan is a fresh whole milk mozzarella, so it comes in a brine. It's fresh balls. It's got a short shelf life, and we break that ball up and so it might be bigger chunks, and it's. When it's hot and gooey, it's a little creamier and stringy. It can be a little tougher when it cools off and hardens up again, but it reheats easy. But again, because of that difference in the mozzarella, the fresh whole milk mozzarella has a much higher moisture content. And then if you get, depending on what toppings you get, if you get a lot of vegetables, if you get spinach on there and mushrooms and other things, it's going to be a little wetter in the middle. It's just, you can't avoid that. I mean, you can leave it in there longer, let some of that liquid evaporate, but if you truly cook it in 90 seconds to 2 minutes, like authentic Neapolitan style, it's just not enough time for all that excess liquid to evaporate. So the biggest difference is you get a puffier, chewier outside crust. It's a little softer and wetter in the middle. But in Italy, they don't pick it up like a New York style pizza. They eat it with a knife and fork. Some of your smaller pizzas they don't even cut. It's not sliced into 6 or 8 pieces and brought to you at the table. It's brought as a single pie, and you eat it with a knife and a fork. So
how do they do that? From the middle out, or from the out in?
I don't know.
Okay, well that makes sense.
I've never paid attention to it. I've seen them eating it, but I never paid attention to which direction are they going.
That makes sense. So this goes back to what I said earlier. So once you understand that, sometimes it has nothing to do with the actual item. It's just it's a thing in our head. It's all in your head. So now, with that being said, I figured that out, got over that hurdle. So now I can just enjoy it for what it's supposed to be.
Right.
So
and that's why I don't like the open-ended questions you see sometimes. Who has the best pizza?
Yeah.
In X place, well, if you're going to say that, you need to narrow it down. Who has the best New York style pizza?
Right.
Who has the best Neapolitan style? Who has the best,
that's a good point.
School style pizza? Because they're different animals.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. That's like saying which bakery has the best bread in town? Well, what kind of bread are you looking for? Do you want a white loaf bread, or do you want, a good true French baguette, or do you want an Italian loaf you can make a sub out of? Because they're totally different.
Right.
So,
and then once you figure out what you're getting and why, then you just adapt. So you may have to learn new ways of doing things. So picture this, because the Neapolitan style is softer in the middle, and I told you that I got the pie of the month last week, and I ate the whole thing, and I ate 75% of it driving from Rebel Pie back to here, because I had to get back over here. So you can just imagine how that went. But I've gotten really good at it, though.
I was going to say,
so I only dropped like 2 pieces of beef.
Once you get used to, if you're not used to that style of pizza and you try to pull it out by the edge and slide it out and pick it up, it's all going to dump out. And we've gotten,
there's an art to
complaints about that. You gotta pick it up while it's in there, kind of pinch it and fold it in half and get it.
So you got to let it cool down a little bit. So your pieces come right out the oven to the box, so they're hot. So this is just my style. This is my technique. Maybe Alan has a different one, or you might like a different one. What I did, and I think to accomplish driving down the road and having that, I think I've figured something out at least. My technique works to a degree. Let it cool down a little bit. You obviously don't want to let it get cold.
Right.
And then that'll help hold that cheese together some. And then you may have to get your fingers dirty, but you probably don't have to. But it should at that point pull apart a little bit. And then I would kind of scoop it like the New York style a little bit while it's still in the box there. And then slide it over to get whatever may fall, and then use that second hand
real quick.
And once you get through the first or maybe second bite, the rest is kind of there. And then you can use that we'll call that the rear end. You can use the rear end to get any excess that was down there and scoop that in. And so that's how I did that while driving successfully.
Yes. Now, if any of y'all want to try that while you're driving,
don't do it while you're driving.
Make sure you learn to drive with how to drive with your knee before you try that.
I'm sorry, that's very irresponsible. Don't try that at home. But if you're at home, try that. So the question that I wanted to ask you is, and I mean, you've got years under your belt now of Rebel Pie, so you may have more than one answer to this. If you do, that's fine. But I'm sure you've got at least one, because people do some strange things. What is the craziest pizza request that you've ever gotten?
Like actually wanted us to make?
Yeah, so like the weirdest thing that somebody asked for.
Oh, that's a good question. I hadn't really, because most people, I don't know that I've ever gotten anybody way outside of the menu, like, why don't you have this? So most of our orders come, from the menu. Now we've gotten some crazy combinations. Like we've got actually a guy who's pretty regular, and and he's very specific of how he orders. And when he orders it, he wants it put on his pizza exactly the way he orders it. So when the ticket comes out and he wants the cheese last, and he'll be like, all right, I want a double dose of mushrooms. Make sure I get 2 doses. He calls them doses. I want purple onion, and he'll get green olives, and he'll get a double dose of blue cheese, and he'll get sun-dried tomatoes and anchovy. I mean, just 20 toppings, and then he wants 3 kinds of cheese put on top last and a melted. So it's
Wow.
Now I've had people send me wild things, like they've seen on one of the food networks, or they've been on vacation and somebody's cooking a 72-inch pizza that feeds 40 people. And so I've had people send me wild requests like that. So you should do this. And I'm like, dude, that won't fit in my oven.
Oh, that's what I was thinking when you said it. I don't think that'll fit in there.
But as far as just like, there's one, I'm trying to think of what it was. Somebody told me I should do it. And I can't remember what it was. It was a weird combination. I mean, they're like, man, don't knock it to you. I think it included pineapple, but it was something like,
that's usually the culprit.
it wasn't like ham and pineapple. It was something totally off the wall with pineapple. I can't remember what it was now, but somebody did say, man, I know this sounds crazy, but you should try doing a sausage gravy and biscuit pizza. And I'd already done it. They didn't even know.
Oh,
it.
wow.
And it was awesome. It was good.
Sounds good, eh?
Yeah. We actually did it for the Food and Wine Festival, I think 3 years ago.
Okay.
When it was, instead of the last 2 years, the grand tasting has been like downtown behind the federal building. Well, this year it was down at the city center market, farmers market downtown. And we did a sausage gravy and biscuit pizza. It was good.
Was the biscuit portion just the regular dough, or was there another?
No, actually, I made my own sausage gravy in the house and everything. We used that like the sauce and put it down, and we put a little bit of smoked Gouda on it as well. And then about halfway through the bake, I made homemade buttermilk biscuits, and we'd crumble up some biscuit on top of it, stick it back in to let it just slightly toast just a little bit. Because it gave you another level of like texture when you're eating it. I think it was good.
Wow. That's a big back pizza extravaganza right there.
It sounds crazy.
That sounds fantastic.
But it was amazing. I still have people, man, bring back that sausage and gravy pizza again. So we got to do it again sometime. But
you might have to after this.
That's a lot of sausage gravy to keep making all the time. So.
Yeah, I imagine it would be. Okay. Well, that's what I was wondering. I know a lot of people do some strange things with pizza. So
yeah, and I wish. Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I mean, somebody wanted. We do a couple dessert pizzas. Somebody wanted the s'mores pizza with pineapple added to it.
Oh man, I like pineapple and I like the s'mores pizza, but I don't think I'd put them together.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, really? And I asked the server, I'm like, they're serious? They really want that? I walked to the table. I'm like, y'all want a s'mores pizza and add pineapple on top of it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
It just came. I knew it was something off the wall there.
Not sure what would have provoked that thought, but I could guess, I suppose. But
we did a shepherd's pie one time. I mean, I made like real, not quite runny, but creamy mashed potatoes, and put brown mutton on it and fresh rosemary, a little bit of corn. So it was like shepherd's pie pizza.
Yeah,
it was actually good.
I mean, I agree. Less is more. And I think with especially. The Neapolitan style pizza that y'all are making over there, we talked about, because we did the video, and when we shot that, my buddy Rob, that was part of that production and filming when we did it, we were having that discussion. I think it's actually on the film, on the video, is basil is like a super underrated pizza ingredient.
Oh, yeah.
And so really for the pies at your restaurant, I can do the fresh mozzarella and basil, and I'm good to go.
Yeah. Well, that's the classic margarita.
Exactly. So, but I like the I like some of the specials too. So I mean, like I said, I've mentioned it a couple times, but the cheeseburger one was excellent. But yeah, the margarita style basil, cheese. There's, one of the best pizzas I've had because I'm kind of a New York style pizza guy. I like the big, but the Dave Portnoy rates pizzas. He always talks about the undercarriage, I like the kind of crisp undercarriage. And there's a place called Angelo's in South Philadelphia, and they're known for their Philly cheesesteak, which is phenomenal. But they also do pizza, and they got the grandma pie that they make as their specialty, and that's all it is cheese and basil. Mm-hmm. I think they sprinkle a little Parmesan on the top of it, and it's fantastic. So, basil, for me, simple. And maybe some other pizzas, like if I was, if I found myself at one of these other places, maybe we went to Mellow Mushroom or something like that as a group, and then I might load it up with all kind of stuff, but it's just to jazz it up some, big hefty pizza. But yeah, I think.
Yeah. And it's all, I never knock anybody else's pizza. I can't, if you say you like Tony's 10 for $10 frozen pizzas, who am I to say you don't like it? I can't tell somebody what tastes good. All I can claim is that nobody uses better ingredients than we do.
Yeah.
I can tell you our ingredients are going to be a higher quality. Everything's going to be cooked fresher than any chain pizza you can get. I can't guarantee you're going to like ours better because taste is a personal thing. If you eat my pizza and you like somebody else's style of pizza better, I don't have any ill feelings towards you. I don't like everybody's. I have my favorites of things I like. It's taste and food are a very personal thing, and that's why it upsets me sometimes when people are bashing stuff online and everything. Oh, that place is trash, or you don't like it. Well, be more specific. Be more specific. Well, just because you don't like a style of something, I don't know. It's just
100%. There's a lot of that goes on. So even with some of the content, like stuff that I was doing, and where we started and where we are has been kind of an evolution. So I didn't really know exactly where some of this was going. It's kind of evolved as it's going along. But one thing that I noticed quickly, like there's a difference in an honest critique, or even, I don't even know if it's really a critique, but just an opinion, as opposed to, some people, they get food and then they turn their camera on and just start slamming and bashing stuff. And I never really, no matter what direction we went, I never really had any intention to do that because of exactly what you said. Taste is personal preference. Mm-hmm. And so, because just, being honest, if I wanted to do that and you could do the same thing, there's some items that people say are highly rated. Oh, this is fantastic. And I may think it's like, man, there's way better quality stuff than that. Like you think that's great. Like you don't even know food. I could say that, but like you said, who am I to say that to them? That's what they liked and that's what you like.
Right.
What I like to do here is, a lot of what we want to do is introduce people to other stuff. And so there's two elements. I genuinely, passionately want to see the Florence food scene develop and grow and diversify and gain depth and give us as residents a lot of different options of things to eat and just have a flourishing food scene. And so for that to really happen, people have got to go out and be exposed to different things and try different things and find different things that they like. So part of what I'm doing is just a conduit just to expose people to stuff. Mm-hmm. But then the other thing too is just be, a support mechanism to our local restaurants too.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying that some people don't realize that. Like you can prefer something over the other without just assuming, well, this is trash. Well, no, it may not be. It's just not what you're accustomed to.
It's just not your style or what you're used to. So to others, it may be. And I would say this too, especially in your small mom and pop or anything that's more artisan based. Like town hall cooking steaks over an open flame, fire. Julia Bell's cooking from scratch, all these good restaurants. Alex and DeMassimo's, the Italian people that are hand cooking, doing things from scratch. And it's not a chain based on a system, not put in a press for X number of minutes. If something's not right at a small mom and pop style restaurant, ask for the manager or the owner and politely let them know. Because I guarantee you, if you have a problem with something I cook for you, I'll make it right. Whether I refund your money or I cook you another one. Don't settle for it and then go bash them
Right.
online. Give them an opportunity to create it. It might be they might have a new cook. They thought they were ready to go. They might need a little training. Could just be so busy. Somebody, it got through somebody's blinders and they let a pizza or a steak or whatever, fried, whatever it may be, was a little overcooked and it slid through. But let them know, give them an opportunity. Don't never take one sample. Never let your sample size be one to critique a restaurant. At least go back again or let the owners know, give them a chance to make it right. Because I tell you, it's a tough business. It's long shifts. When you're really, really busy, things can fall through the cracks. And as owners and as managers, a lot of times you don't know unless you're told. And I try to instill in my staff all the time. One of my favorite sayings around there is "good enough is not good enough." And I've heard over the years, a lot of times I'll critique a product going out by an employee or something, and I'll be like, "That's not the way I told you." Well, nobody sent it back. That's not the criteria that they don't send it back. The criteria is that it goes out perfect the way I taught you how to do it. And for the most part, I've got a good staff, and that's the way it goes. But you can fall into complacency thinking that just because most people won't complain. Most people just won't come back. So you really gotta, it's really important to emphasize that you get it right. And I think a lot of that comes, the fast food industry and chain restaurants have hurt mom and pops in some degree, in my opinion, by being so consistent all the time. To me, consistency is the killer of spontaneity. How many people go on vacation? It amazes me how many people I see posting pictures on vacation, and they're at some big city or in Europe or something, and they're eating at a chain restaurant, and I'm like, why? You're in this huge city with all these fantastic chefs, and it's because they want to know what they're getting.
Yeah.
They don't want to try something new.
I never do that, for the record.
And with mom and pops, you're liable to get some variation here and there. I mean, it's like Red Lobster when they're shrimp scampi. I mean, it comes in that little, because all those things are pre-portioned.
Yeah.
The exact same size shrimp. They're laid out like sardines in the little thing. It's the only way they can control portion costs and hire help over thousands of locations, hundreds of locations, and everything be the same, because people demand consistency from one restaurant to the next. Whereas I want to try something different. So if it's the steak was a little different shape this time than it was 2 weeks ago, as long as it's cooked right and has good flavor, I'm good with it. If the seasonal vegetable changes or potato changes, I want something different. And a lot of people don't. They want something that's familiar and comfortable. And I don't know what the reason is for that. I guess you have to have a psychologist in, to ask them. Maybe it's they just don't want, they've had enough drama during the week and they don't have to deal with getting something they weren't expecting for dinner, but
people are creatures of habit.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think the food is supposed to be a bit of an adventure. I like to try something. I like to be surprised to an extent, I like to venture out and try something different, but then I also do like my staples also. So, I mean, it's just, and this flows right into where we were going. So, I mean, you've been a part of the Florence food scene for a while. So I'd like to hear what your perspective is, past, present, and future of where we are. Because, I mean, it doesn't have to be a long thing, but I'm just in general, what are your thoughts whenever I say that? And I'll just tell you quickly, mine, at least on that note, is I think a lot of that is changing. And I've talked about it at length here at different places, whether on this podcast, even as young as it is, and definitely on different videos. So I won't belabor it and get into all of it. But just to keep it short, I think a lot of that is changing. So I think that because of a variety of reasons, you mentioned Florence Food and Wine. I mean, that just even something like that, the writers coming in from these different larger media outlets and the exposure, the internet content like what we do here on this platform, people on social media just simply going out to eat and sharing pictures on their Instagram, just any and everybody doing things like that. The Florence food scene is changing. And so your restaurant has been part of that culture shift. There's others. We've mentioned Chef Alex a few times. The Massimo's, not to take anything away from them, what they're doing over there. So just bringing the Italian element. Obviously, Stefano's has been around for a while, but it's something different than Olive Garden. And the conception was for a long time, the people in Florence, all they want is Olive Garden. Well, at a point in time, I think that was true, but that's changing. And I think that that's going to continue to change. Olive Garden will be fine. There, people in Florence, I like to go to Olive Garden. There's things, I'm not ashamed to say it, that I like. Sometimes I want to do that, especially like that the black tie mousse pie. You know what I'm talking about? You ever had it?
No.
Y'all know what I'm talking about. The black tie mousse pie at Olive Garden, the calamari. There's stuff I like to go get there. So I mean, they'll be fine. But I think our Florence food scene is developing and growing. So I'm excited about the future. But what do you think?
It's definitely growing, and I think a lot of that is the population seems to be growing. I mean, the housing developments and everything popping up like mad. And I mean, our business is growing. I mean, the restaurants that have been around for a while that give solid food and solid service, I think, are all doing well and growing as well. And we're getting more options. So I'm excited about what's coming. I guess my biggest complaint, and I can't really complain because I'm part of the problem in my complaint, is that with my hours, because I'm in the business and I'm closed on Sundays and Mondays, a lot of times my wife and I want to go eat somewhere different on, Sunday or Monday night. And a lot of the mom, just like me, and those are the ones I want to go to try to support, like Max or DeMassimo or Alex. We can't go on Monday night because he's closed, and Sunday he's closed, just like I am. So, but there's a lot of, I wish there was more mom and pops with a, specific cuisines popping up. I think there's too many restaurants with too many choices. Whenever I see, now I've been to Baja Joe's a few times and I've really enjoyed it. Despite the menu being huge, I was like, but they're doing the volume that they can still, put the options out fresh, and kudos to them. They're doing a good job of everything I've eaten so far. But like F.E. Pops over there, I mean, they do some different stuff, really good. They're being successful, excellent quality, good food. I mean, SC Real Foods, they're kind of, I don't know how many people know about the little Peckaway Cafe there, but I mean, they put a solid burger out and smoothies and stuff. So I would like to see, more of the ethnic diversity of mom and pop restaurants, like the Chinese restaurants are all the exact same menu and everything. Yeah. So it's growing though. I'm not a big chain person, so I don't get as excited when to me that signals population growth. And when the chains start coming in, it means they see a viable market now. So that's good for the community, not necessarily. And I see people comment, how many more chicken places do we need? How many more wing places do we need?
I saw that. I was disappointed because
it's just
Dave's Hot Chicken is unique. So I get it. I could have done without Wingstop personally, but Dave's Hot Chicken's a good thing. I'm the same way. People that watch this stuff know where I stand on this. It's been no secret. I've been very hard on the chains, but I am excited about Dave's Hot Chicken. And what would be even better is if, like Doug said when he was here a few weeks ago, if somebody comes in and, because that's a niche. Dave's Hot Chicken is a niche. It's different. There's a bunch of chicken places, but there's no hot chicken places in Florence. Mm-hmm. So you get the dry seasoning and it's the coated, and it's a certain niche. But if somebody locally would take that on, that's even better, because they may be able to do it better. You can, kind of hone it in a little bit more and tinker with it, and
it's tough though. It's a volume game. So especially with I'm a niche market. I do one style of pizza, one size of pizza. Thank the Lord, I've been successful enough to make a living and stuff. But you see a lot of restaurants that come in branded as a certain thing, and next thing you know, they're adding other day parts to it, and trying to expand sales, because niche markets it's all a numbers game. There's an X amount of people in the population that like really, really, really hot food.
Yeah.
And then X amount of them are going to think that Dave's Hot Chicken is the best of the hot food.
Yeah.
A certain amount of them are going to shop there on a certain, regularity. So it's everything is a numbers game. So you see a lot of niche markets pop up, and the next thing you know, they're adding this and adding that. People ask me all the time, why don't you do wings? Why don't you do subs? And then my biggest response is I'd have to do it.
Right.
And
we got to get you.
I want some free time too.
We got to get you some help over
If
there
I was
so you
20
can get
years
out.
younger, if I was 20 years younger, I might be going for broke and adding this and that. And I'm just, I don't, if I can't do it right and it be the highest quality, I'm not going to do it just for money.
Well, I think that it's definitely growing. So, I mean, Flavors of India has done really well. That's one of our favorite places. I think that's going to continue to change. I mean, Elliott's has now had their grand opening this past week.
Mm-hmm.
And, with Elliott coming into town and doing, bringing what he does over is going to help. There's rumors that there's going to be a lot of development in that whole corridor coming down from 95 down to Dargan and, Dargan and Evans Street there in the heart of downtown. I guess remains to be seen how much development will go into that. But if that's true, I would imagine there's going to be more restaurants in that area too, and there's no telling what'll go down there. So,
right.
And I know, from my profession, and even if you just read the local news enough, that there's so much residential growth happening, and these people are coming from all over the place. I mean, just this last 2 weeks, we haven't closed, but we've contracted deals with a couple from New Jersey and a couple from West Virginia. I've had a couple from Raleigh that I'm working with. Later this week, I've got to meet a couple from Pennsylvania. So there are people from all over the place that are coming to our area, and they're bringing all their background with cuisine with them. So they're used to these things. So you never know who's going to open a restaurant, or at the minimum, they're going to definitely patron restaurants that may be already opened or would open in the future. So if you're into eating like I am, and I know you are, then I think it's a time to be excited. I think the Florence food scene is developing, and I don't think there's any limit on what it can be.
I don't either. Like I say, with the growth coming in, it's just going to be what people's tastes are. But I also see it seems like there's a lot more people in every city now. There's a lot more people in Florence that travel more and like to eat and go to fancier restaurants out and about in other towns and stuff, and would like to see that same kind of thing happen here. And I think like Town Hall, they do some different choices and everything. Victor's has got some good choices now. So, or has always had good choices, not now, but, those are both higher end restaurants that put out good food. So I think, more, I don't think we have a great dedicated steakhouse in Florence. Yeah. I think that would probably boom. I mean, you got the two out there on the interstate, but I'm not a big fan of either one of those chains.
Yeah.
I think I would love to have like an authentic Korean barbecue type place with the oven in the middle of the table and the half dozen condiments around the side, eating kimchi and rice.
Yeah, we don't have. I don't think we have. There's a Korean place up in Columbia that I saw in the Columbia Foodies Facebook group. If you don't follow that one, I used to live up there when I was a kid for a little while, so I'll keep up with that one too. But I think we have Korean food here in Florence.
No, we don't. I don't know. It's there's several I'd like to see, and like I say, I wish there was more choices. And again, I can't complain because I'm closed on Sunday and Monday too. But the times I can go out and eat, the choices are way limited, and I'm just not a big. And I know some of the chains are owned by local franchisees too. A lot of the fast food are owned by food holding companies in your bigger cities and stuff. But some of them are run by are owned by individuals, so you're semi still supporting local. I'm just not and part of it is I like to cook too, and I know how to cook, so I know I can make it the way it should taste, and I want it to taste, and for a lot cheaper than taking a chance at a chain where everything to me is not bad, but nothing jumps off the plate at you. You know what I'm saying? It's just
you don't got to tell me
nothing has that extra level of flair, depth. And a lot of times it's not just what it is or the difference between, say, Olive Garden and Max or Alex. A lot of times the difference is the freshness and the layers of flavor, the extra level and what they're putting in the pan and the fresh herbs and fresh ingredients and everything. It just gives you more layers of flavor. Not that one's, not Olive Garden's bad. If you like it, you like it. But if you've never experienced that depth of flavor and the aftertaste that lingers and you don't want to wash down and take a sip of water to get rid of it, you want it to stay there, then you're experiencing that difference in quality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and just, a lot of stuff that in your big franchises, a lot of the stuff that comes to your table on the plate just came out of a little portion baggie out of the microwave. And I'm not saying that's the end of the world. I'm just saying that there's different levels to the food game in restaurants. And so when you understand what you're getting, what you're paying for and why, then, you just make decisions accordingly, I guess. But I think the other thing too is it's not just people moving here. It's also the internet. So channels like Mark Wiens, he's got 10 to 12 million subscribers, goes all over the world eating stuff, big YouTube channel. And just there's all kinds of food people vlogging and eating food. And so a lot of our local people, in this community are getting all of this exposure. And I think that helps tremendously too. And so that actually, that right there was a lot of the inspiration behind a lot of the stuff we've been doing here. And I've had people come up to me and tell me there was stuff in Florence that I didn't even know existed. And I'm like, great. That's so encouraging to me because that's exactly what I wanted to do because this is what these guys like Mark, like some other guys, even a guy like Ben Dean. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a guy from South Korea, but he grew up in the States. And all he does is just sit there and eat. He puts out 4 videos a week and he just eats random stuff. Yeah. But you get exposure to all kind of different food. And you're like, man, that looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
And so then, it gives you ideas of things to either go try or make at home or whatever. And then cooking channels also like Sam the Cooking Guy. Or Sam the Cooking Guy. I think that's his name. Anyways, he's got a good name. His name's Sam. I like his name. But he makes a lot of stuff, and I'll try it right at home. So some of the recipes that I use at home, I got directly from him. So that helps bring exposure to now is the internet.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're right there, and that has helped open people's eyes to the variety. There's just so many more options out there than you would ever dreamed of if you hadn't actually seen them on TV or especially if you haven't traveled a lot. But one thing that irks me is some of these reels that are so popular. People, it's just a guy and a girl cooking or something, and they're just doing the most outlandish stuff. And I'm like, why? I mean, one of them was like spreading out this big roll of puff pastry and putting ketchup and mustard on it, and then putting hot dog weenies in there and another, and then pressing down between them and then putting something on top and then baking it. And by the time they cut it, the weenies sliding out and everything. And they're like, oh, I'll never eat hot dogs another way again. I'm like,
I think some of that's just for views because I see some of it's ridiculous. It's like, there's no way.
There's so much effort and so much mess. And just, the hot dog has been the way a hot dog is for eons because it's simple and perfect, just the way it is. You don't need to go.
I mean, I'm all about the creativity, but some people, because some of that stuff you see looks really good, but a lot of it is like they did that. Like there's no way that somebody's actually eating. I saw one of those videos literally today, and they took raw ground beef, dumped some kind of candy, hard candy, and I don't know what the candy was, made these little balls, shoved it in the microwave for 8 minutes, and made hamburgers with it. There's no way that was actually something that somebody really sat down to make and eat. That had to be just to see if they could get 1 million views.
It's got to be.
So you got to weed through the nonsense.
And like I say, I must be not the norm because I'm like, I watched, I used to watch Chopped a little bit when it first came
on. I did
on.
too,
I thought that was interesting, but it does nothing for me for years now because I'd watch it and I'd be like, all the drama, a lot of those cooking shows, there's a lot of drama to it and everything. I was actually got emailed one time about being on Guys Grocery Games they were doing a pizza version and stuff. And I was like, I'm not interested. But like Chopped, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, you're never going to be in a scenario where you've got marshmallow peeps, red hots, beef jerky, and a piece of salmon.
I love Chopped. So for that reason, Chopped was hilarious.
To make a dinner with. I'm like, why even? Some of the ingredients they'd have in there, I'm like, you're never actually ever going to have that variety of ingredients to create a dish with. So
I know, but the amount of panic on people's faces.
I know, but what's the point of being a real cook? I mean, nobody's ever going to combine those ingredients.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
And then the judge is trying to critique it with a straight face. It's like, the salmon was cooked perfectly and the red hots really gave it a nice touch, complemented with the beef jerky to the side.
I love that show. I think the host's name was Alton Smith, I think. He was great.
No, he was Alton was
Oh, was Chopped? Oh, no. I'm sorry. Chopped was good too. I'm thinking of Cutthroat Kitchen.
yeah, but I'm thinking of
I know what Chopped was. Chopped
Yeah.
because they used to come on
but I'm
back
thinking
to
of
back.
Alton Brown is who I'm thinking of.
Is that him?
He did the like how to do stuff. His initial. God,
That might
what
be
was
his last name, but this guy, it's Alton something. I'm thinking
Yeah, it's Alton Brown. He did he did Cutthroat Kitchen, but before that, he did. It was one like doing the science of maybe why this is the best way to do it. Kind of like America's Test Kitchen almost type deal.
I think he's got another show now. He does something else, but he was a great host. And then I love that show. And they would put them in
like
these
Alton
crazy
Brown. His
scenarios that the same thing you're talking about. It'd be ridiculous scenarios. They'd have a certain amount of time in the pantry to go get all the items. But it was I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a good show.
I could do like Top Chef or Iron Chef more than the Chop. To me was just so in the like the grocery games and some of those, they're just so. I don't know. I guess I've never been a big game show type or all that kind of stuff. So it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's enough people's things because they're all popular and they stay multi seasons on TV. So it's just not my cup of tea. But
so I want to ask. I do want to know what your cup of tea is when it comes to this. And this is the last question I'll ask you for this one. But if you may, and I know you don't get to go out to eat a lot, but we want to know, what is Alan Cook's favorite, if you had a favorite item from a restaurant that's not your own kitchen in Florence, what's something that when you do get to go out and eat, what's something that you really look forward to and like?
Oh, Lord, I'd have to think. Honestly, I don't eat out a lot. We'll get more takeout, Mexican or something here and there. I mostly cook at home, honestly, but there's things I really look forward to out of town. In town, I would say I like Victor's shrimp and grits. I like the kind of the Creole cream. That's really good. I like Effie Pop. Sometimes they're specials, and I can't name one off the top of my head, but some of their sandwiches they'll come up with and stuff I like. Town Hall, their charcuterie board. I like the pickled onions. I like the accoutrements that go with it.
Yeah.
Now, Alex, have you had his charcuterie?
Absolutely. It's like one of my favorite things
that thing
to eat.
I think feeds 12 people.
I know. It's fantastic.
Yes, it's excellent. Those are a few.
That's good. Those are good answers. I like the scallop and grits also. Victor's, you ever had those? And they've got that blueberry, a house-made blueberry. I forgot exactly what they called it. It's a blueberry sauce. It was in the video that we did with them, but really, really good. Very unique, but excellent. The scallops and grits. I guess it's still on the menu. Yeah. It was a regular menu item. I know they change the menu every so often, though, so I don't know if it is or not.
Now, I'm not a huge seafood fan, but if I get that hankering, as we say in the South, every now and then for some fried flounder or something, Tubbs puts out a jam up fried flounder. I get the collards and the grits. I'm a grit fanatic. They got good creamy, cheesy grits. Flounders always cook well and good portions.
I like their flounder.
I like that. Gosh, like I say, I don't need a whole lot of variety here. We use
those. I was only looking for one, so those are good answers. 100%. It just gives, like I said, people something they might go try.
And I try to support other locals as much as I can. It's just I don't have many days to be able to do it. So, those are just a few. I'm sure if I sat down and really thought and had my wife here to jog my memory,
and that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, that would help a little bit. You put me on the spot.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Good answers.
No, we need somebody in Florence to make a really good steak or roast beef and good mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes are an art.
Yeah.
And most of the chains, they're dry and you press it with your fork and it crumbles into 1,000 pieces. Yeah. They're not. You got to use a lot of butter and a lot of milk.
I'm glad you said that. Did my wife hear that? You got to use a lot of butter in the mashed potatoes. Thank you for just mentioning that. She'll know why.
So that's my thing. I could not win very many food challenges, but I think I could do a roast beef and mashed potatoes and and take it out. So
Well, I don't think that's going to fit on a pizza, so you might have to. Yeah, I don't know. You put sausage.
I did the
biscuits
mashed
and
potatoes one time.
Yeah.
I thought it did
the shepherd's
pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
It actually comes out pretty. Sprinkle a little cheddar on there too. And it actually.
I'm open to giving it a try.
It was pretty good. It's just keeping it's a challenge making the potatoes right and keeping them at a good spreadable consistency where you don't tear the pizza dough up trying to.
Yeah.
If you let them get cold, and of course you can only keep them warm for so long. So that's kind of like my from childhood on. I love either roast beef or and it's kind of interesting. I grew up my mom's parents were from Alabama, and my grandmother on my mom's side was a good Southern cook. We'd have grits and eggs and bacon and toast for breakfast and fried chicken and collards and mashed potatoes and stuff for dinner. My dad's mom was a certified dietitian, hospitals, but she was a gourmet type cook. So we'd stay with them. Breakfast would be an orange sectioned off for you when you got to the table, a grapefruit spoon, and fresh squeezed orange juice because they lived in Florida, and more fancy type pastries and stuff. And then she'd do the roast leg of lamb with fresh herbs and stuff on it and mashed potatoes. So I kind of got the best of both worlds growing up. But I think if I had an all-time favorite meal, it would be roast beef or leg of lamb and mashed potatoes with good gravy. You got to have good gravy.
Yeah, sounds good. I learned I got the tip from somebody a while back to when making the mashed potatoes to actually bake the potatoes instead of boil them. And I found that to be a game changer because, a baked potato really has that pronounced potato taste. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, when you boil it, it's really not the same. So, that's what I shifted over and started doing, and that's worked out pretty well.
What type of potato do you use?
We mix it up, and I still haven't figured out exactly. I'm bad about not writing anything down, just freestyling everything and trying to get a feel for it. And some things it's in my head. I haven't gotten that with the mashed potatoes, so there's been times where they were like perfect, but I've tinkered with all of them. So the red potatoes, the golden, the Yukon Gold, and the russet. But I've found that some people say that use the red potatoes, but the last time I tried to make those, I think it was Christmas Eve, I got tasked with the mashed potatoes and the garlic butter mushrooms. Garlic butter mushrooms came out excellent. It's not that hard to make them. But the mashed potatoes, I tried to use the red, and I over mixed them, and they came out gummy, I worked them too much.
I got you.
So the russet potato is actually the one I've had the most success with.
Really?
Yeah, I like to fry the Yukon Golds, but the russet has been the ones that I've had the best success with.
Now, I like the russet for a baked potato, wrap in tinfoil and make a baked potato. I like the red to quarter, cut into chunks, put a little olive oil, fresh rosemary, some herbs, and then make roasted potatoes in the oven because they stay firm. But I use Yukon Gold exclusively for mashed potatoes.
Yeah. That's been my second best one, I think.
To me, they make the creamiest mashed potatoes. I'll boil them. But I reserve some of the starch water. I don't drain them completely. I'll pour some of the water in a cup first. And after I drain them good, I'll pour a little bit of that starch water back in because you got the nutrients and the flavor in there. Mm. And then I let my butter sit out, for an hour or two to kind of soften at room temperature so it doesn't cool them off. And I'll tell you one thing I love to do too. I put a little bit of Parmesan in them. And while they're boiling and baking, I'll roast a whole head of garlic. You get good roasted garlic and squeeze some of that fresh roasted garlic in there.
Sounds good.
A lot of butter, enough milk to get the consistency.
Yeah.
I can eat those for days. I can eat bowls and bowls.
Yeah. I play around with different stuff. Like I said, I haven't dialed it in. I haven't figured out what I want to do, but I've tried a lot of different things. So I use the russet because I guess that works best because, like I said, I've shifted over to baking them, and it's easier with those to get that potato out of there. And I'll use sour cream. Throw some of that in there to try to creamy them up a little bit.
My wife's not a huge fan of sour cream, but I usually sneak a tablespoon or two in while I'm mixing them up.
And a lot of butter. Yeah.
She loves my mashed potatoes, but I don't necessarily tell her what all's in everything I cook because she's a real picky eater. So sometimes I just have to cook it and see if she likes it and not tell her what's in it.
I'll tell you this too. Talking about local brands. I mean, this is a little bit different because I know that a place like Harris Teeter is still a larger entity, but they're. So my wife, we preferably things need to be organic. It needs to be, which I'm fine with that. I'm on board with that, but it's just she's really a little bit more adamant about it. And so the regular brand of sour cream that I grew up eating in the red container. I don't even know what the brand is called, but the one everybody you can picture the one in their head. But we've shifted over for years now. We get either the Harris Teeter brand, I guess that's Simple Truth, organic the sour cream, or the other one is, and I don't remember this. I think maybe it's Clover. No, I forgot what the brand is. If she was here, she could say it. But it's in a purple container at Harris Teeter, and it is light years ahead of the other cheaper sour cream. It's $1 or $2 more expensive. It is $1 or $2 more expensive, but it is.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I actually can eat it right out. I grab a spoon. When I put it in there and I'm done, I grab one spoon for myself. And
I love sour cream.
It's really good. So if you've never got that one, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor and try it.
I'll have to try
See what you think.
I do like Harris Teeter. That's another thing when people talk about grocery stores coming in is, I like Harris Teeter because they've been here for us all these years. It might be a little expensive, but they have a lot more options. You can get, more ethnic foods, diversity-wise, that you can't find, at some of the smaller stores and stuff. So I just try to support who's been supporting us all along. And stuff. And I'm not saying, Publix wouldn't be good. Or, my uncle worked for Publix 30 years in Florida. So I'm not going to knock them. But I think let's just really support what we got before we're always scrambling for something new that's not unless it's really different.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we had something really different open up, but every time there's a new wing place opening up or a new Mexican place opening up, it's just more of the same to me. It's like, that's just kind of the boat I'm in. But
I'd love it if we could get a Whole Foods, but I don't think we're not there yet.
I'd take them just for their cheese section.
I know, man. Whole Foods is excellent.
It's crazy.
We've got a long way to go before they're going to be looking at us, but I'm excited about where we're going, though.
Yeah, I am too. We just got to branch out. One last story I thought about. I had a Korean exchange student live with us from years ago. My son was growing up. They were in the same grade, so he was from South Korea, and he came and lived with us for a year. He and my son both went to TKA, and he was always wanting kimchi, and you couldn't find kimchi then. Now now you can get it at Harris Teeter. They have it now, but he was talking about food from home. Well, one day I used to do a lot of deer hunting, and I was cooking some deer one day. I diced it up, some backstrap, and basically like stew meat. And I was cooking it with some olive oil and garlic and herbs and stuff, and I put some fresh tomatoes, all chopped them in there, kind of made it almost like a stew, deer stew, put it on some rice. And he came in one afternoon, and he was like, what are you making? And I told him, he said, can I try? And he went full. He said it was the closest thing he had to what he was used to at home since he had got to it. And I'm just trying to make some deer stew, you know, but I guess just the tomato broth and the rice and the spice to it and everything. He was just lapping it up, couldn't eat enough of it, kept wanting me to make it all the time. So again, you just never know, what the options are until you get out there. I would have never thought that's something that, would strike a chord with him is him liking, because the Southern country food, he was just like, what's this? He was just craving his kimchi and his rice from, back home and everything. And he was so excited to have that. So
I got exposure to Korean food in a past relationship many moons ago, and Korean family. So I got the opportunity to eat some good Korean food at different times, and that was my first real exposure. But it would be nice. It would definitely be nice to have somebody open a Korean restaurant. So there's a lot of things that somebody out there has the skill and the vision, and I'm just here to encourage you. Go out there and give it a shot. There's a market in Florence. You do it right, and you can succeed.
I think so. If you got the money,
if you got the money and the time,
it's tough,
and the patience,
that's
and the staff.
Those are the keys right now. People, we talked about people don't understand, like educating the pizza. People also don't understand, if you've never been in hospitality, the hidden cost of running a small business, and especially a restaurant. The rules, the regulations, the licensing, permitting, the things that you have to do, and every little thing. Over the years, just like when they required you to wear gloves all the time. Suddenly the price, especially with COVID and everything, the price of gloves went, I mean, just astronomically high once you had to have them. I remember years ago when I had the bakery, they came out and all the fluorescent light bulbs had to have these clear plastic tubes over them. So you had to go out and, buy 40 to 60 of these tubes at a couple bucks a piece.
Regulations.
Everything's just an added cost. Well, they didn't realize that when they stay over those fluorescent bulbs for a couple of years, they get brittle and crack and break worse than the light bulbs did.
Yeah.
So it's
that's the worst part. A lot of the regulations can kill industries, and then to your point, sometimes they find out that if it wasn't, it maybe should have been obvious on the front end, but sometimes maybe it wasn't, and then find out that really wasn't actually efficient anyways, or even realistic. But
and right now,
you've killed half of an industry in the process.
Well, a huge industry problem right now, especially for higher end restaurants and bars, is liquor liability insurance. I mean, they're already, I think, voting on reform right now. It's gotten out of control. Especially, I've seen several in Charleston, several in Columbia, a couple of VFWs I've seen posted that had to shut down just because, I mean, their liquor liability went from $15,000 to $125,000.
Wow.
I mean, it's just crazy just because everybody can sue for everything.
Yeah.
And that's got to be on top of the other insurance you're already paying for. It's just crazy.
Yeah, you can't. At a certain point, it's just a math equation, and I mean, how our business is supposed to survive. So it's just,
well, and you've calculated out too. When you're paying out more to everybody who's doing nothing. I mean, you're paying all this money to insurance companies. You're paying all this money for beer license. You're paying all this money for business license. You're paying all this money for liability insurance, all this money for workers' comp insurance, and then you're getting, as an owner, sometimes you think, man, I could make this much,
yeah,
with a lot less hassle, just working for somebody else. I mean, it's really is a numbers game, and it's a lot of people don't understand how many added costs there are when they complain about food prices. Most of the time, you're not, you can't say, well, I can buy that at Food Line for this, and you're charging me this. That's not what you're paying for.
Right.
You're not paying, a small markup for what I paid for that pepperoni. You're paying for all my costs of doing business, that take away from the bottom line. I mean, it's
and the alternative is, if you're the restaurant owner, the alternative is we just wouldn't be here. So these are the only two options. Because like I said, it's just math.
Exactly. That's what it comes down to. And a lot of people think it's, and I'm not saying there aren't some super wealthy restaurateurs out there, but the average mom and pop are making a living.
Yeah.
That's, and working tons of hours to do it.
Yeah. You gotta really love doing it. You gotta have a passion for it. All right. Well, Alan, I appreciate you joining us and doing this.
Thanks for having me. Hope I didn't get on too many rabbit trails there.
No, it's good. I think it was all good. So hopefully y'all enjoyed it. If you've never been to Rebel Pie is on Second Loop Road. What's the number address?
804 Second Loop.
804 Second Loop.
Huntington Plaza Shopping Center.
Yeah. So it's right over there. There's State Farm, Rita's, across from the Bojangles. 804 Second Loop. I'll put the link also to the website for the restaurant down in the description of this episode.
Our Facebook page is probably more relevant and up to date than our website, though.
Okay. Well, I'll put that down in the description. So I'll put the
Rebel Pie on Facebook.
And that way you can keep up with Facebook, Instagram, keep up with the pie of the month, that kind of thing. Just keep up to date with what they've got going on over there. So if you've never been, make sure you go check them out. If you have been, go back and see Alan. And as always, I appreciate y'all's viewership. Y'all take care, and God willing, we'll see you on the next one.